Lieutenant Marcus Webb had survived 3 hostile boarding actions, 2 asteroid field navigations, and 1 diplomatic incident involving fermented Glaxian beverages, but nothing prepared him for the moment. His boot came down on something soft, scaled, and very much attached to someone important. The screech that followed could have shattered titanium. Marcus whirled around in the crowded market of Station Helios, his hand instinctively moving toward his sidearm before his brain caught up with his reflexes. Standing before him was a female alien whose species he didn't immediately recognize. She stood roughly his height, with iridescent blue scales covering her arms and neck, golden eyes that blazed with indignation, and a long, serpentine tail that he had apparently just trampled beneath his standard-issue military boot. "You clumsy." "Oaf," she hissed, her universal translator rendering her words in crisp, aristocratic tones. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" Marcus raised his hands in the universal gesture of apology. "Ma'am, I'm incredibly sorry. The crowd pushed me back, and I didn't see." "Didn't see?" Her scales rippled with color changes that Marcus's xenobiology training suggested indicated extreme agitation. "My tail is nearly a meter long, and you didn't see it?" A small crowd had begun to gather, various species whispering and pointing. Marcus noticed several members of her own kind, looking at him with expressions that ranged from shock to what might have been amusement. "Again, my sincere apologies," Marcus said, keeping his voice level and respectful. "Is there anything I can do to make amends?" The alien woman opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, an older member of her species pushed through the crowd. He wore elaborate robes adorned with symbols that Marcus guessed indicated high status. His scales were a deeper blue, faded with age, and his golden eyes widened as he took in the scene. "Lyria," the older alien said urgently, "tell me he did not step upon your tail." The woman called Lyria lifted her chin defiantly. "He did, Father. This human crushed it beneath his boot, like it was nothing more than a station cable." The crowd's murmuring intensified. Marcus caught fragments of conversation in various languages, most of which his translator couldn't quite parse. He did, however, notice that several aliens were now looking at him with something approaching pity. Lyria's father closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. When he opened them again, he addressed Marcus directly. "Human, what is your name and station?" "Lieutenant Marcus Webb, United Earth Forces, currently assigned to the UEF Valiant," Marcus replied, snapping to attention out of habit. "Lieutenant Webb," the older alien said, with the weariness of someone delivering terrible news, "I am Ambassador Kelvin of the Norian people. You have just stepped upon the tail of my daughter, the Princess Lyria, heir to the Norian throne." Marcus felt his stomach drop somewhere around his boots. "Your Highness, I had no idea. If there's any way I can—" "You can fulfill the terms of our oldest law," Kelvin interrupted. "Among my people, the tail is sacred. To step upon an unwed Norian's tail is to claim them as your betrothed. You are now engaged to marry my daughter." The station corridor seemed to tilt slightly. Marcus was certain he had misheard. "I'm what?" "Engaged," Lyria said, her voice dripping with disgust. "To you, apparently. This is a nightmare." "Hold on," Marcus said, his military training kicking in to help him process the absurd situation. "Surely there's some kind of exception for accidents? I'm human. We don't have tails. We don't have these customs." This was completely unintentional. Ambassador Kelvin shook his head gravely. "Intent is irrelevant in matters of tradition. The law is absolute. You stepped upon her tail in front of witnesses. The engagement is binding." "This is insane," Lyria protested, though Marcus noted she seemed more resigned than shocked. "Father, he's not even Norian. He probably doesn't even know the first thing about our culture." "Which is why you will teach him," Kelvin replied firmly. "The wedding ceremony must take place within 1 lunar cycle. according to tradition. Lieutenant Webb, I suggest you contact your superiors and explain the situation. Marcus could already imagine that conversation. Sir, I can't return to duty because I accidentally got engaged to an alien princess by stepping on her tail. Would probably rank among the most ridiculous reports ever filed with Fleet Command. This can't be legally binding, Marcus tried again. I'm a serving officer in the UEF. I have duties, responsibilities. As do I, Lyria cut in sharply. Do you think I wanted this? I was shopping for crystal matrices for my research lab, not hunting for a husband, and certainly not a human one who can't even watch where he plants his enormous feet. Despite the gravity of the situation, Marcus felt a flicker of irritation. My feet are perfectly proportional to my body. Thank you very much. And I said I was sorry. Sorry doesn't undo a betrothal, Kelvin said. Come, we must begin the necessary arrangements. The Norian Council will need to be informed, as will your Earth authorities. The next week passed in a blur of meetings, legal consultations, and increasingly frustrated attempts to find a loophole in Norian law. Marcus learned that the Norians were an ancient race whose territory bordered several key trade routes. Offending them by refusing to honor their customs could have serious diplomatic repercussions. Captain Rodriguez of the Valiant had been surprisingly understanding, if clearly amused. Well, Lieutenant, you've certainly found a unique way to contribute to human-alien relations. Marcus now sat in a small garden aboard the Norian diplomatic vessel, reviewing a datapad full of marriage customs he was expected to memorize. Lyria approached, her tail swishing behind her with what Marcus had learned to recognize as agitation. You're holding that upside down, she observed. Marcus looked down at the pad and sighed. The Norian alphabet still confuses me. Lyria sat down across from him, her expression slightly less hostile than it had been. Over the past few days of forced proximity, they had developed something approaching civility. I've been thinking, she said carefully. This situation is absurd for both of us. Agreed. But perhaps it doesn't have to be a complete disaster. She paused, seeming to choose her words with care. Norian marriages are not like human ones, from what I understand. We value partnership and mutual respect over romantic attachment. Many of our marriages begin as political or practical arrangements. Marcus set down the datapad. What are you suggesting? That we approach this practically. We perform this ceremony, satisfy the law and our respective governments, and then negotiate terms that allow us both to continue our lives with minimal disruption. A marriage of convenience, Marcus said. Precisely. I have my research. You have your military service. We need not live in each other's pockets. Many Norian couples maintain separate households. It wasn't ideal, but it was better than the alternatives Marcus had been imagining. What about the future? What if one of us wants to marry someone else eventually? Lyria's scales shifted through several colors before settling back to their usual blue. Norian law does allow for dissolution of marriage under specific circumstances. We could petition for such after a suitable interval, claiming incompatibility. How long an interval? 5 years, typically. Marcus rubbed his temples. 5 years was a long time, but he had committed to longer tours of duty. And in the meantime, we maintain the appearance of a legitimate marriage when required for official functions. Otherwise, we pursue our own lives. She met his eyes directly. I know this isn't what you wanted, Lieutenant. It isn't what I wanted either, but we're both intelligent beings. Surely we can make the best of an unfortunate situation. Marcus considered her proposal. Lyria was arrogant and had a sharp tongue, but she was also clearly brilliant and, now that she wasn't furious with him, displayed a dry wit he could appreciate. All right, he said finally. We do this properly. Honor the ceremony, respect each other's boundaries, and figure out the rest as we go. Lyria's scales shimmered with what might have been relief. Agreed? And Lieutenant? Yes? Try to look less miserable during the ceremony. My people will think I'm marrying someone who finds me repulsive. Despite everything, Marcus smiled. I'll do my best, Your Highness. Though you might want to work on not looking like you're attending an execution. Her tail flicked in what Marcus had learned was the Norian equivalent of a laugh. No promises. The wedding ceremony, when it finally occurred, was a strange blend of human and Norian traditions. Marcus wore his dress uniform, while Lyria wore traditional Norian bridal robes of silver and blue. They exchanged vows before both the Norian Council and representatives from Earth, promising partnership and mutual respect. As Marcus carefully placed the ceremonial bracelet around Lyria's wrist, avoiding her tail with exaggerated care, he caught her eye and saw the faintest hint of amusement there. Perhaps, he thought, this wouldn't be the worst marriage in the galaxy after all. Stranger things had happened in space. Though he would definitely watch where he stepped from now on.